kind of a scenario, and she said total, I think it was 9 years.
No,
From the beginning to end, so it was the longest, and as Vicky said, you know, she's an accomplished writer, it was the longest process of her writing a book, of any of her books, 9 years total, because of the initial part of, you know, where they were going to write an article, and, you know, this whole thing, we'll step back a minute. I also want to thank Luis and Antonio and his staff for hosting this. They're wonderful people, and they've got a wonderful staff, so I want to thank them again. I was told not to say thank you again, but I also was taught it's better to err on overdoing it than underdoing it, so I'm going to overdo it. But thank you, and then thank you, Vicky, for all your many, many years, and thank you for writing the book, and then thank you for instigating this, because it would have never happened without you, without Vicky's brother. But, you know, when it first started, you know, a lot of people, friends and family asked me, well, you know, how did this book happen? You know, and I never imagined when it started that it would be a book. I mean, I just thought it was a technical article paper. That's what it was going to be. And then, as Vicky said, her hard drive crashed, and then nothing was written. And then Vicky, when she contacted me after those 5 years or so, I just never imagined there was going to be a book. I mean, I thought she was going to write something. So we talked, and I was traveling here, and every few minutes I had and traveling, I would call her, she would call me, and I'd answer a few questions. And I just never dreamed it was going to be a book, and I never dreamed she was going to put me on the cover of it. And then it's just so many things happened, and it just kept growing and growing. And it is truly a good book, and she's a wonderful writer, and some of her expressions, the way she describes things, is just amazing. And she's really made a story. And also I want to add, too, that, you know, the original book cover was just me, and I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but when I met the love of my life, and then this book signing came about thanks to Luis and Antonio, I told Vicky, it was my initial idea anyway, I said, you have to have a picture of Sonia on the cover, because it's a love story, and people want to read about a love story more than they do a tower. So the woman of my life is on the cover now. The woman of my dreams. But also, the book just grew over time. You know, it was all technical, and mostly, and as Vicky said, these towers, the A and the B, the A, B, and C tower, the center tower sends a signal, but the right and left are directional. And when another little interesting point for this, because I know there's some technical guys here, you know, this signal on, when a clear night, it does go from Cuba to Miami, and it's a north-south clear channel, as they call it. But when the A and C towers came down, it stopped the direction from going north, so it was going also east and west. And they had complaints in Lincoln, Nebraska, of the signal going that far. So you can imagine. Now, it didn't matter going out in the ocean. And so I thought that was pretty impressive. But, you know, there's just so many things that happened, and then everything just kept growing. And then Vicky wanted to know about me as an engineer and how I was as a single engineer with my daughter. And it just, so she started asking me about my daughter, Star, who came here all the way from South Carolina. And before that, España. Star studied in Spain for a long time. But what was interesting, so then she wanted to know about my daughter and how I was as an engineer and a father. And then she interviewed Star over the phone. And then she came to Columbia and met Star and interviewed Star in person. And what was interesting to me as a father, and there's a lot of fathers here and mothers, this similar situation, you hear your kids never tell you certain things that they truly feel, because they just don't share certain things with you as a parent. And because of the interview that she had with Star, she asked her a few questions, and I learned a few things about Star that she appreciated about me, and you don't think your kids appreciate you, but they do. And so a couple of key things that came out was Star appreciated, and actually she gained the love of travel and her Spanish culture because of me, and that came out because of Vicky. So that was interesting, and then she shared a couple of things about when she was younger that she enjoyed with me. So just a lot of things happened that I didn't think would happen. And another interesting part, so the book is almost finished, and after almost a year and a half, so I tell Vicky that I met the woman of my dreams. And she said, and so I started telling Vicky about Sonia, and she said, I'm not going to finish the book. Tell me more, tell me more. So I told her about Sonia, and then she interviewed Sonia over the phone, and she didn't meet Sonia till tonight. So then Sonia was in a chapter in the book, and Vicky had a draft done, and we were reviewing the draft. Then I told Vicky, I said, Vicky, I'm going to surprise her, I'm going to propose to her. She doesn't know it. Vicky said, I'm not going to publish the book. I want to see how it ends. So, this is all true. So you guys really got to read the book. So then I tell Vicky how I'm going to secretly propose to her. And then Vicky hears about the whole story and what happened. So then Vicky writes a whole other chapter, and then she interweaves Sonia in other chapters in the book. And Vicky said, and I quote, she said, the book is a better book because of Sonia. That's true. So, it's just been a great experience. And just a little bit about my career. I was just really fortunate to work in the tower broadcast and communication industry. It's been a great career. Broadcasting and communication people in industry-wide are just such a great group of people, very professional, caring people. It's just really been a great experience working with people of high caliber, and some of those people I've worked with are here, and I appreciate everyone being here. But in part of the book it talks about the challenging things and the challenging parts of the industry and the dangerous part of the industry. And it is a bit dangerous, but the key is, if you're focused on what you do, it's really not too tough. But I've been through some challenging experiences, and there's a few stories in there about some kind of close calls that are kind of interesting that you can read about. And I could go on for a really long time, but I know you guys probably had enough. But it's just been a great experience. It's been a great career, and it's the other interesting part of the book. When I was proofing, I had to proof the book, obviously, and it's not only is it a love story, but it's history. It's a biography, part of my life, but also Vicky didn't mention this, but a really interesting part of the book, and I didn't have to actually proof this section because Vicky one section really had nothing to do with me, is this beacon that was on top of the building, and it was a mystery for 80 years, and Vicky and it's a really interesting part of the book, and I didn't have to proof that part, but I read it, and I started reading it, and I couldn't stop.
Don't give it away.
I'm not going to give it away. All I'm going to say is Vicky solved the mystery, but just so many things happened, and just the story just kept building, and just one little part of it, Vicky was going through. Okay, I'll leave that. I won't say that. I was just going to talk about the elevator thing.
That was miraculous. They were miraculous.
No, can I say something about that?
Yeah, you can.
So Vicky, this World War II, and the World War II veterans, there's not a lot of them around. They're in their late 80s, early 90s, right? So Vicky's researching this thing, going to this building for a parking ticket or a speeding ticket,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, speeding. It wasn't a speeding ticket, but it was a ticket.
All right, Vicky drives 110. She's got a racing jacket on, isn't it nice? All right, no. So she goes in the elevator for this ticket, whatever it is, and she's standing there, and this older gentleman is there, and he's a World War II veteran. And so she starts talking to him, and he can tell her about this mystery. So anyway, you have to read the book for this. But that's just a really other interesting part. And I can say more. Do you want me to add anything else?
Well, I know we need a question and answer period. How are we on time?
No, we're good.
We're good?
I think I covered the highlights.
Please, any questions you have for the authors or the protagonists of the book, feel free.
And by the way, my brother also, he's in the book, and one of the things that I didn't mention is I asked him at one point, why has no one ever proven that these diamond towers are better or not better transmitters? And John said, because there's no hardcore radio frequency engineers that had the capability back then. And I said, yeah, but they have it now. In fact, you're a radio frequency engineer who has the capability. And so John actually may have solved that mystery. That's also in the book. He certainly, it looks like he at least has an explanation for why the diamond-shaped towers. So you can ask him. He's not going to tell you what he found, because that would be a spoiler. But if you want to ask him questions about what he did to figure that out.
Question, when were these towers built?
They were built in the 30s and 40s. All the blown out, all these diamond-shaped towers were built in that time period.
So Tony Fonseca, what he had to do with this tower? Did you fix them or what?
Yes, the tower, one tower was partially collapsed, the other one was partially collapsed, and there were no blueprints. So it was a four-face tower, four sides, and it was all twisted and bent. And when we went there, no one was sure what we could do. And so I figured that out of four faces, we could measure at least one of the pieces of the four faces. If three sides you couldn't measure were all twisted and bent, you had at least a fourth one to try. So we measured some in the field, then we took the sections, brought them back to our fabricating facility, and we took it all apart, measured it. Then I had to create the geometry, point to point, recreate the geometry, and then we did an analysis on the structure. And believe it or not, when we fabricated it and then built it in the field and we set it down, it fit perfectly.
What year was that?
This was 1990, like about a year, 90, 91. Yeah, around 99 to 91.
Where are you from?
España. No, my mother's from Spain, my dad's from Portugal.